one of us has gifts. Each one of us has talent. What do you do that doesn't get you tired, even if it's midnight? Have you discovered it? Let me tell you, if you discover that which you do without ceasing, there is your job. There is your enterprise. There is your business. What tools drive wholesome community recovery? Leaders should know how much distance ahead of their people they are walking, because leadership is as strategic as followership. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on something I call what tools drive wholesome community recovery. What tools? What are the tools? What is a tool? A tool is an instrument that you use to fix a situation. So if you have had a community that has had trauma for a long time, surely there must be some tools that you use to make sure that that society that has had trauma that comes from war, trauma that comes from displacement, does not become a signature tune to build a sense of victimhood. Because I suffered, okay, so let me just use my example. Because I grew up with no shoes until I was 13, 14 years. Because I had all sorts of diseases, from worms to chicken pox. Because I went to schools that are no longer in existence, right? I went to a school where early morning it would be a lodge, but we bring a blackboard, they are washing their bed sheets, but we are studying for Cantab. Because I did not get the best treatment from Budo, right? Because I did not have a father or mother who could afford those schools. So now I become a victim of what I did not get when I was growing up. I become a slave of what I went through. It's called trauma. Trauma must be removed by the Holy Spirit, by the renewing of our mind, right? And we face the world as if nothing happened to us. We pull ourselves by our bootstraps because there is no Icelander who will do it for us. We pull ourselves by our bootstraps because we know that South Korea, I had brought pictures for you, so I'm looking at them. You are not able to see them. South Korea, Japan, Israel were bombed to smithereens. Do you know the meaning of the word smithereens? There was a country called Japan, okay? And I will tell you why I don't want to fully compare that, because that was Second World War. There was a part of that country, because it had an elephant spirit. It never gave up. It refused to say we can have a conversation. That country of Japan said, until our king, our emperor, calls us back from battle, there's nothing we will talk about. Huh? In fact, there was a soldier, a lieutenant, who went to fight in Philippines in 1941, and he came back in 1974. And he was locked on an island, and he said, I have not heard from the emperor. They sent a helicopter with the commander who recruited him. They threw some papers from the sky. They said, the war ended 30 years ago. He said, you are lying. The emperor has not told me. Eventually, they brought the commander who had enlisted him. Can you believe this? Enlisted him 30-something prior, right? The commander had retired. He was an old man. The teeth is gone. They brought his mother, who was 90. They landed them. They said, son, the war ended. His uniform was intact. His rifle was intact. He was living on slaughtering animals. He said, the emperor has not called me back. That is American propaganda. The war is still going on. we can be slaves of the past. Don't we know? I know that. I know that as a person because many, many times, and I have asked God to really allow me to not say things, and then I don't practice them. When I was growing up, because we are village boys, you're running to school, there are no toilets. You pee wherever you see. Huh? So they told us when we were young that when you pee in the middle of the road, you got to spit there. Because if you don't spit there, someone will step there and you'll never be a man. Does anyone know that? I don't know whether you have that in Acholi. You have that? Or they would say, if you are grazing goats or cows and you sleep, remember you are a 5-year-old child. You are sleeping, the cows have gone, they have left you. When you wake up, spit in the left hand, use this hand, slash the saliva wherever it goes. That's where the cows are. What do you think that is? Slaves of culture, of what you found. Eh? So we might laugh about this, but we can be slaves of witchcraft and we don't know. We can be slaves of what we found in our homes, but we don't know. It has calcified. You know, these things that I use examples that are really village because that's my background. I may wear a tie, but I know all this. When you walk a lot and you don't have water for washing, what happens at the back of your foot? In Ankole, we call it a migari, in Unyoro. It's called calcification. There's a lot of cuts. The foot stops feeling anything. You can punch it, you don't hear anything. You can even inject it, you can't hear anything. Culture is like that. You are so gone that you can't hear anything. So, this country called Japan was bombed completely with an atomic bomb. They still have infants born with problems. You can imagine 70 years later. The bomb is the one that got Japan to surrender. But that country had a prime minister called Nobusake. Again, I don't want to bother you with these names, and because I'm kind of I prefer that leaders read on their own. He said, the people who bombed us must have something better than us. Instead of hating them, we are going to befriend them. And when we befriend them, we are Japanese. We don't lose who we are, but we take what they have that we don't have from them. They befriended the Americans. They got technology. They got everything. Japan today is economy number 5 in the world. They don't want you to tell them about what happened in the war, but they remember the war. It's the same with South Korea. South Africa has struggled. You must have seen the struggle between, it's no longer with white people, it's black people. What's that spirit that does not make us look inside of us and say, we will never be from another country or another continent or another region. We must learn to work together. Mozambique, where the NRM was born, the first 28 the president talks about in Monte Paz, in Cabo Delgado, there is now trouble in Cabo Delgado. The south is a bit better. The north has problems. Mozambique has struggled. Not as much as South Africa, but South Africa was a larger economy. South Africa's economy is $400 billion GDP. What's your GDP as a country? Who knows? 45, 48. Okay? So you need about how many? 6 or 7 South Africas to make Uganda. So many Ugandans to make one South Africa. Okay? But what if we had 20 years of no production in northern Uganda? What economy would we have today? Would be different. You don't know that Gulu is the center of Africa. It's the center of the world in weather, in soils, in everything. But it's also a center of culture. Anybody calling themselves Nyankole, Ganda, Soga, things came from here. Some of us know it. Some of us know that things came from Northern Berel Gazelle. And the settlement was here. If you go here in Pakwachi, there's a place called Pubungu. Who knows Pubungu? So my pronunciation may be different. But that's where if you ask the Jonams, they say that's where the Luo people left us. Ask the people who remained, that's why we're strong. We never left. Eh? There's a type of fish they eat. Who knows it? Huh? Small fish? Huh? Now you are home. You're, huh? Onang-nang. So Onang-nang now, these people from Mbarara and Kampala, they come in their uniform, they say, you are catching immature fish, this very... So the Jonam say, you know what you're talking about. This Onang-nang is so mature, but you don't know it because you have not taken time to study. So the consequences of a disease that has not been treated very well is what we see expressed in certain things. For example, alcohol. Alcohol is an expression of something. Eh? Alcohol is not the real problem. Alcohol is an underlying message that something needs to be fixed somewhere. Number two, prostitution. Prostitution. Am I speaking about things? Do you want me to be, if I'm not honest, I cannot be helpful. If I do the political talk, I will not have been helpful for you today. Yet this day will never come back. So prostitution is an expression of something that has gone wrong. So you can go and take people off the street and say, we rehabilitate them, but you have not dealt with the underlying soil out of which prostitution came from. Violence is an expression of something that has gone wrong. Witchcraft, expression of something that has gone wrong. Insurgency, the inability to have a discussion, is underlying behavior reflected in how a society is dealing with its past. It is a way to cope. You know the meaning of the word coping? So I had a neighbor who passed away some 2-3 years ago. He came to me. He was an older man that he was like 72. He said, Audrey, I want you to buy me a vehicle. He said, you? Vehicle for what? Your church is there. Your children are here. You will have problems with fuel. Are you trying to express yourself? He said, no. I want a car so that when this woman of mine quarrels, I jump in, I drive to another part. I go to Liantonde. Liantonde was his nearest town. That man was trying to cope with the quarrels of the wife. Another person can cope by drinking alcohol. Another person can cope by, I will beat you until that head understands. But the woman might be coping in another way by picking a gun and killing you. These are all coping measures. Some people cope by depression. Some people cope by reliving the past. And they don't move ahead. It's like there's an invisible force that says you can't move beyond here. You are always like this. So please, whenever you see those things, take them as signs or consequences of a disease that we need to uproot. Therefore, as a tool, recovery must be intentional. Please note that word. Intent. When you go to a court of law, the judge does not talk about the actions you took. He asks about the intention you had. You've heard the difference between murder and manslaughter. Someone can die out of accident. The intent was not to kill the person. Right? So, recovery should be intentional. Number two, should be disciplined. The word discipline comes from the same soil with the word disciple. They are both Greek words. They mean that you cannot be disciplined unless you are a disciple of something higher than self. Unless you are following something that is bigger than you. Recovery is a process that requires personal and community leadership. So intentional, disciplined, personal, community leadership. In other words, it's an exercise that you don't do casually. You are very deliberate on what you want to achieve, what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, when you want to achieve it, and who you do it with. In 2006, before Fidel Castro died, Fidel Castro was the president of Cuba for a very long time. And he held together a country, a small island, 90 kilometers below the US. The US put embargo up to today. But the economy of Cuba kept producing doctors to send to Africa. Imagine someone is in trouble, but they send doctors to us. Okay? Now, so they asked Fidel Castro, they said, Fidel, if you are able to recreate the battle that brought you into power in 1959, how many people would you go back with? He had started the battle with 85 people. Fidel Castro kept quiet. After a minute, he said, 3 people. So the interviewer said, what? I thought you went with 85. He said, no, 3 people. He said, I wasted a lot of time trying to wait on the other 82, right? Yet the 3 who were necessary to bring the change, I ignored them. That touched me. Like, we can spend the whole day trying to get everybody in the room, but there are a few people who you touch. And by the sheer power of example, by the sheer power of their faith, by the sheer power of commitment, the rest of the society will turn slowly, and join. That's the intentionality. Now, so, I always want you to ask yourself, if we had not lost these 20 years, what kind of infrastructure would we have in northern Uganda today? If investment in infrastructure had started at the same pace across the country, what population growth would we have today? Because population, some people think population is too many people is bad, but we think that we are a society that has many unmet needs. You know unmet need? It is when you are still using paraffin, yet there is electricity to freeze passion fruits and you sell them. There is a need that is not being met. It's not the size of the population. It's the quality of that population. What kind of investments would have been here? What kind of education and robotics and AI and science would have been in northern Uganda? If you think that way, you'll say, okay, I'll not live in the past. It happened. Right? But I am new today, and I make an intentional, disciplined, personal, and community process to change. Thank you very much. God bless you. Gifts. Each one of us has gifts. Each one of us has talent. What do you do that doesn't get you tired, even if it's midnight? Have you discovered it? Let me tell you, if you discover that which you do without ceasing, there is your job. There is your enterprise. There is your business. When you don't know each other and you don't know yourself, someone will fix you, and they will fix you for life. Change starts with you, and we cannot overcome badness or evil unless we are united under national efforts. We are now going to tackle the roots, and the roots will give us the fruits we need. Don't underrate the knowledge of the people who have made it in your community. Listen, men of God, I ask you to take leadership responsibly.